everyone, it's Hailey, and today is Bookmas Day 20. We are almost at the end, oh my goodness, but today I'm going to be talking about the worst books of the decade. So the last 2 days of Bookmas are special and exclusive to this year, although, I mean, if I'm still filming in 2029, when I'll be 33, oh my god, I'll be 33! Actually, I'll be 34, but like I'll spend most of the year being 33 because my birthday is at the end of the year. But the point is that will be the next end of a decade, so if I'm still filming at that point, then I will do this video again. But 2019 is not only the end of the year, it is the end of a decade, so it is my opportunity to talk about all of the things that I have read over the past 10 years. So this was kind of difficult to do. For the final 2 days of Bookmas, I'm going to be reflecting on a decade's worth of reads. Now, I didn't really start tracking my reading until like 2012, 2011, so it's not like exactly a full decade, but you get what I mean. I didn't even really start falling in love with reading until then, so it's not like you're missing out on much. But the majority of my reading is actually from the past 5 years, which is when I started doing a booktube. So today we're focusing on the bad from the past 10 years. These are just the worst books of the decade in my opinion, and it's not even that I think like the worst book sounds harsh, because I don't think they're bad books, they just weren't for me, as I say in every video like this, but whatever, I need a disclaimer because I don't like people yelling at me. So just keep in mind, this is my own personal opinion and you are entitled to yours, I am entitled to mine, and it's all good. So in no particular order, the first book is 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. We're starting off controversial apparently because that's what I like to do. I read this back in 2012 and it follows a girl who has committed suicide and she left behind these tapes basically explaining why she did it and kind of placing the blame on people for it. And you follow this boy who has received one of these tapes, actually all the tapes, and he doesn't know why. So I have multiple issues with this book, but ultimately, I just think it deals with very, very important and delicate subject matter, and in my opinion, it didn't do a good job of it at all. I felt like the overall message was poor, and there was kind of a glamorization of suicide, and I don't know that that was the author's intent, but that's just kind of how it came across to me, and I obviously have issues with that. I actually read this book at a particular time in my life, and there were so many ways that the story could have gone and kind of kept to a similar storyline, but not left you with such a horrible message in the end, and it just didn't do that, and that's where I have a lot of issues with it personally. Everyone's mental health journey is different, obviously, so if you read this book and maybe it helped you, that's amazing, and I'm very, very happy for you, but I think, in my opinion, that this story would do more damage than it would good. So yeah, like I said, starting off with controversy, and moving on to more controversy, next is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. I read this in 2015, and it was getting so much buzz and so much hype, and I kind of got caught up in it. And then when I was thinking back on it, I was like, no, and I ended up lowering my rating drastically because I felt like it did a similar thing to 13 Reasons Why. It was kind of glamorizing mental illness and there was no hopeful message. I feel like if you're going to write about mental illness, there should be at least a little bit of a hopeful message, particularly if you're writing in the young adult age group, because young people who are maybe suffering or going through things are going to seek out these books. So having these books with absolutely no hope to them, I don't necessarily agree with. So this story follows two characters who are both suffering with mental health issues. They end up meeting on a rooftop and it's unclear who saves who, but they end up sparking a relationship, and this is all about their relationship and their time together. I don't have too much to say about this story other than it could have been better. It could have done a lot of things and it just didn't. I felt like the characters became their illnesses and it just was poor handling of a very difficult subject matter. Next is This Darkness Mine by Mindy Mcginnis, which I read in 2017, and I remember I was at an event and I received an ARC of this and I didn't have anything to read on the drive home, and we had like 4 hours to drive home, so I picked up this book and I hated it so much. I finished it and I was like, what did I just read? Like, it's about this girl who has a twin, but her twin was never born, so she absorbed it, and then her twin starts taking over, and it's like, I couldn't believe it because I read another book by the same author and I really enjoyed it, but this book I had a lot of issues with, and I was confused. I had no clue what was going on, and just everything about it was a lot. I just had question marks around my head the entire time, and like, it was a quick read, obviously, but it was also like a where am I, what is happening read, because so much happened and a lot was unclear and kind of blurred lines that I wasn't really comfortable with. So yeah, I just, no, was not for me. Next is Royally Lost by Angie Stanton. I read this in 2018 and I should have known going into it. I should have known that it wasn't going to be great. You got to like the 60-page mark and there was a kiss, and I felt like it was way too soon. Like, certain stories I feel like can get away with that, but it felt very soon. This is about a girl who's going traveling around Europe. Her parents have paid for the entire thing and she doesn't want to be there. She's miserable and she's an absolute spoiled, rotten brat. And I'm fine with unlikable characters, but oh my god, like, no, she was horrible. It was really just a super quick romance that I didn't like any of the characters for. Like, they were snobby and just awful, and it just didn't have any substance to it. It was very corny, and I can deal with corny things, but like, I think there needs to be a certain level of substance to it. So just everything about this book was going against what I enjoy. Next is Matched by Condie, which I read back in 2014. And this, oh, this book, I can't. I read this when I was kind of starting to get into reading more heavily, like really extremely, to the point where I was reading like 100 books a year. This is when I read this book, and it was at the very beginning of that. My friend recommended it to me, I believe, and I started it and I was like, no, like, why is this happening? What? So one, there's a love triangle. The society decides everything for these people, and you have this love triangle that comes about because of the society deciding things, but like, nothing happened. Like, the plot was set, but nothing happened with it. There was no conflict. There was no climax. There was nothing that happened with it. I just lost interest in it because I was like, why am I reading this if literally nothing is happening? And I'm like, you did things, now do something with it. Like, you have the conflict, use it, but it just didn't happen. So it was the setup for something that, like, I feel like would have been probably 3 stars if I read it now. Back then, maybe I would have enjoyed it more. It was at the time when love triangles were pretty big and popular, but oh my goodness, it was a lot. Next is This Is Where It Ends by Marika Nigh. I read this in 2017 and I was very intrigued by the plotline of it because it is set over the course of 54 minutes or something like that when there is a shooter at this school. So very timely and important subject matter. But I was very disappointed with it because the main focus wasn't on that. It was more so on like a romance and kind of the typical cheesy sort of high school drama. So that was very unexpected, and it made a story that could have been very impactful. It took it down quite a few notches. This was a story that had so much potential, but it barely scraped the surface of that because it focused on superficial conflict. And I kept on waiting for it to get to the main conflict, but when it did, I was kind of like, ugh, it just made me cringe a lot. I felt like this book could have been one that would have started important conversations, but instead it was just like romance as it focused on these 4 characters over the course of these 54 minutes. It just didn't delve into what was really happening beyond the surface. Next is I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. I read this in 2019 for Bookmarked, and it was just so much. I feel like I've said that like 6 million times, but it's really hard to describe why I don't like something. I find it easier to describe why I like something, but I mean, I'm not really good at that either. But this is a story about fan culture. It follows the member of this very famous band, one of the lead singers, and then a big fangirl who is supposed to meet the band for the first time. So you require a hell of a lot of a suspension of disbelief while reading this book because things go places you would not expect. We talked about this book for quite a bit in our live show, so I'll link that down below for you guys, but it was just like, once again, a situation where I had question marks around my head and I was like, what is happening? Like, it was just so confusing. So I kept on rereading things and I was like, is that actually what happened? Like, what? And ultimately, the fact that it was so unrealistic just left me feeling disconnected from the story because I was trying to I can have a certain level of suspension of disbelief, but like this was just beyond me. Finally is The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco, which I read in 2017. This is about necromancy, so I felt like it was going to be really cool. Definitely set up my expectations pretty high, but the main character accidentally raises her brother from the dead, so like that's setting up for an intriguing plot line, but it never went anywhere with it once again. The world building was confusing. I hate when books are confusing if you haven't gotten that yet, but it was just kind of a letdown to have such an interesting and intriguing idea and then just have it go nowhere. So I was definitely disappointed, but oh well. So those are all of the worst books of the decade. I did kind of have trouble compiling this list because I feel like I put books out of my mind if I don't like them, but tomorrow's video with my best books of the decade is very long. Like I have a ton of books for that video, so that's good. More positive than negative. But please let me know what your least favorite book was that you read this decade over the past 10 years. I'd be very interested to know. Oh my god, how could I forget one? The Cursed Child! Oh my god, speaking of putting books out of my mind, The Cursed Child is like my ultimate least favorite book of all time. I hate it, and yeah, I can't believe I forgot The Cursed Child. Wow, that really makes me wonder what else I forgot. I checked Goodreads too. Did I delete it from my Goodreads or something? I don't know. The point is, I absolutely loathed that book, and I know it's a play, but like, I just don't like the story. I thought it was just, oh, I have so many thoughts on it, but I can't believe I almost forgot it because that's literally like my least favorite, and I definitely read it this decade because it came out this decade. Oh, wow. I feel like I read that back in 2016, maybe 2015. Whenever it came out, that's when I read it. So yeah. So now that is my list, and I'm sure I forgot something else, seeing as I forgot that one, but I did the best I could. So if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to click that subscribe button, then click that bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post. I post new videos twice a week, and I posted 21 videos over the course of December. Tomorrow is the last one. You can catch up on all of them down below in the playlist that I have linked. I just turned into Yoda for a second there. Weird that was. But you can also follow all of my social media. All of my handles and links and all of that fun stuff are down below for you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for the last video of Bookmas. What? Bye!